In the annals of military history, there exist moments so paradoxical, so seemingly impossible, that they challenge everything we think we know about the nature of warfare and the relationship between air superiority and battlefield victory. These are the moments when conventional military wisdom crumbles in the face of human determination, tactical brilliance, and the kind of desperate innovation that emerges only when survival itself hangs in the balance. For the state of Israel, a nation that has built its entire defense doctrine around technological superiority and the decisive advantage of air power, the concept of losing control of the skies while simultaneously achieving victory on the ground represents a fundamental contradiction that should be impossible according to every military textbook ever written. This is the story of 3 nights when Israel lost the skies but won the war below, an exploration of 3 of the most extraordinary and counterintuitive military engagements in modern warfare history. We will delve deep into the tactical genius, desperate improvisation, and sheer audacity that allowed Israeli ground forces to achieve decisive victories even when their enemies controlled the air above them, demonstrating that in warfare, as in life, the most important battles are often won, not by those with the most powerful weapons, but by those with the most creative minds and unbreakable will to survive. Prepare to discover how Israeli commanders and soldiers rewrote the rules of modern warfare, proving that air superiority, while crucial, is not always the determining factor in military success, and that sometimes the greatest victories come from the most impossible circumstances. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel right now for more incredible war secrets and the legendary military technologies that are reshaping the future of global defense. The first of these extraordinary nights occurred during the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Specifically, during the opening hours of the Egyptian and Syrian surprise attack that caught Israeli forces completely off guard and temporarily stripped them of their traditional air superiority advantage. On the night of October 6, 1973, as Egyptian forces crossed the Suez Canal and Syrian tanks rolled across the Golan Heights, Israeli Air Force pilots found themselves facing the most sophisticated air defense network ever deployed in the Middle East. A deadly combination of Soviet-supplied surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft artillery, and fighter interceptors that turned the skies above the battlefield into a killing field for Israeli aircraft. The Egyptian military had spent years preparing for this moment, studying Israeli tactics and developing countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize the air power advantage that had given Israel decisive victories in previous conflicts. The SA-2, SA-3, and SA-6 surface-to-air missile systems created overlapping zones of destruction that made low-level attack runs suicidal, while high-altitude bombing became impossible due to the presence of advanced radar-guided missiles that could reach aircraft flying at any altitude. Israeli pilots, accustomed to operating with virtual impunity over Arab airspace, suddenly found themselves unable to provide the close air support that ground forces had come to depend upon, leaving Israeli tank crews and infantry units to face numerically superior enemies without the air cover that had become fundamental to Israeli military doctrine. Yet it was precisely during this first night of aerial disadvantage that Israeli ground forces demonstrated the tactical flexibility and innovative thinking that would define their response to the crisis. Cut off from air support and facing overwhelming odds, Israeli tank commanders began implementing new tactics that had never been tested in combat, using terrain features, coordinated artillery fire, and night fighting techniques to neutralize Egyptian advantages in numbers and equipment. The famous tank battle at the Chinese farm, fought entirely without air support due to the deadly missile umbrella overhead, saw Israeli armored units use innovative flanking maneuvers and concentrated firepower to destroy entire Egyptian armored divisions, proving that ground forces could achieve decisive victories even when the enemy controlled the skies above them. The second critical night occurred during the 1982 Lebanon War, when Israeli ground forces found themselves operating under a completely different kind of aerial disadvantage during the siege of Beirut. Unlike the missile-dense environment of the Yom Kippur War, this night was characterized by the political and tactical constraints that prevented Israeli air power from being used effectively in the urban environment of West Beirut, where PLO fighters had established defensive positions among civilian populations that made airstrikes politically and morally unacceptable. Israeli commanders found themselves in the paradoxical situation of possessing overwhelming air superiority in terms while being unable to use that advantage due to the rules of engagement and international pressure that surrounded the siege. The challenge facing Israeli ground forces during this second night was fundamentally different from the technological air defense systems they had faced in 1973, representing instead the kind of asymmetric warfare that would become increasingly common in subsequent decades. PLO fighters had turned the dense urban environment of Beirut into a three-dimensional battlefield where traditional air power advantages became liabilities, using tunnels, bunkers, and civilian buildings to create defensive positions that could only be neutralized through close-quarters ground combat. Israeli infantry and engineering units were forced to develop new urban warfare techniques that relied on small unit tactics, precision demolitions, and house-to-house fighting that bore no resemblance to the mechanized warfare that had characterized previous Middle Eastern conflicts. The innovative solutions developed during this second night of aerial disadvantage included the use of specialized urban warfare equipment, modified tank tactics for street fighting, and coordination between infantry and engineering units that allowed Israeli forces to systematically clear PLO positions without the massive destruction that would have resulted from airstrikes. Israeli commanders discovered that in urban warfare, the ability to control the ground level and below-ground infrastructure was often more important than controlling the airspace above, leading to the development of new tactical doctrines that emphasize the importance of subterranean warfare and the kind of precision operations that could only be conducted by highly trained ground forces. The third and most recent of these extraordinary nights took place during the 2006 Second Lebanon War, when Hezbollah's sophisticated tunnel networks and underground infrastructure created a situation where Israeli air power, despite achieving complete air superiority, proved insufficient to neutralize an enemy that had literally gone underground. This night represented the evolution of the challenges Israeli forces had faced in previous conflicts, as Hezbollah had learned from the experiences of earlier Arab armies and developed defensive strategies specifically designed to negate Israeli advantages in air power and technological sophistication. Hezbollah's underground fortress system in southern Lebanon represented a quantum leap in defensive engineering, with tunnels and bunkers that had been constructed over decades with assistance from Iranian and North Korean military engineers who understood how to create positions that could survive even the most intensive air bombardment. These underground facilities were not merely hiding places, but sophisticated military installations with independent power systems, communication networks, and supply caches that allowed Hezbollah fighters to continue operations even after weeks of intensive Israeli airstrikes had supposedly destroyed their capability to resist. The tactical challenge facing Israeli ground forces during this third night was unprecedented in its complexity, requiring them to develop new techniques for detecting and neutralizing underground positions that were invisible to aerial reconnaissance and invulnerable to air-delivered weapons. Israeli engineering units pioneered new methods for tunnel detection and destruction, while infantry forces developed specialized techniques for underground combat that drew upon lessons learned from urban warfare in Gaza and the West Bank. The success of these ground operations, achieved despite the inability of air power to contribute meaningfully to the tactical situation, demonstrated once again that Israeli military effectiveness depended not solely on technological superiority, but on the adaptability and innovation of individual soldiers and small unit commanders. The common thread connecting all three of these extraordinary nights was the ability of Israeli ground forces to adapt their tactics and develop innovative solutions when their traditional advantages were neutralized or unavailable. In each case, the loss of effective air support forced ground commanders to rely on fundamentally different approaches to warfare, emphasizing small unit tactics, terrain utilization, and the kind of tactical creativity that emerges only when conventional solutions prove inadequate. These experiences fundamentally changed Israeli military doctrine, leading to greater emphasis on ground force capabilities and the development of new technologies and tactics specifically designed for situations where air power cannot provide decisive advantages. The lessons learned from these three nights had profound implications for military thinking far beyond Israel's specific strategic situation, contributing to a broader understanding of how modern warfare was evolving in response to new technologies and tactical innovations. The experiences demonstrated that air superiority, while still crucial in conventional warfare, could be neutralized by determined enemies who were willing to invest in appropriate countermeasures and adapt their tactics to exploit the limitations of air power in specific operational environments. The technological innovations that emerged from these experiences included new types of ground-based sensors for detecting underground activity, improved armor and protection systems for vehicles operating in urban environments, and specialized weapons and equipment designed for tunnel warfare and underground operations. These developments influenced not only Israeli military capabilities, but also the broader international market for military technology, as other nations recognized the need for similar capabilities in their own military forces. The human dimension of these three nights cannot be overlooked, as they represent thousands of individual acts of courage, creativity, and determination by Israeli soldiers who found themselves in situations that their training had not fully prepared them for, yet who managed to adapt and overcome through sheer force of will and tactical innovation. The stories of tank crews who developed new fighting techniques under fire, infantry squads who cleared buildings without air support, and engineers who solved previously impossible technical challenges under combat conditions all contribute to a broader narrative about the importance of human factors in military success. Three nights when Israel lost the skies, but won the war below, represents more than just a collection of military engagements. It symbolizes the evolution of modern warfare and the ongoing tension between technological advancement and tactical adaptation that characterizes contemporary military conflicts. These nights demonstrated that even the most advanced military forces must be prepared to operate without their traditional advantages, and that victory often depends more on adaptability and innovation than on superior equipment or overwhelming firepower. The strategic implications of these experiences continue to influence Israeli military planning and doctrine, leading to investments in ground force capabilities, underground warfare technologies, and the kind of tactical training that prepares soldiers for operations in environments where traditional advantages may not be available. The lessons learned have also influenced the development of new military technologies and tactics that are designed to be effective even when operating under significant constraints or disadvantages. If this incredible story of three nights when Israel lost the skies but won the war below has captivated you as much as it has captivated us, please make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. What other examples of military forces achieving victory despite losing traditional advantages do you find most inspiring? Do you believe that adaptability and innovation are more important than technological superiority in modern warfare? We'd love to hear your perspective on these remarkable demonstrations of military resilience and tactical creativity. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more secrets of war and incredible stories of the battles and innovations that are shaping our world. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode, because we're committed to bringing you the most compelling stories that demonstrate how superior tactics and unbreakable determination, combined with innovative thinking and tactical flexibility, can create victories that seem impossible and prove that true military excellence comes not from having the best equipment, but from having the best soldiers and the most creative commanders.